we're not here to talk about kitchen jazz. We're here to talk about musicians of Malwick. How'd you get your name?
Well, it's the name of the house that we live in Scotia, that was built in 1712, and it's a wonderful old house, and we know there was music in it. It seemed the perfect
And you carried on the tradition.
We carried on the tradition 300 years later.
Yeah, well, why not?
Right, exactly.
Right. And so you got that name, and you got brought together musicians, and you do like chamber music, is that?
We do chamber music. We try to have a focus on the historic aspects of chamber music, so I do research on things that were performed in the Albany, Schenectady area, 200, 300 years ago. And
so
we
you
put it
use
together.
like the authentic style of music, is that it? Or, I mean, because you can do different arrangements.
Right,
we play music and you have different arrangements.
Right,
so.
we play on modern instruments, but we do it in an authentic way, so that I go back and often take things that were performed back then and adapt them for the group, so that it's a very historically accurate experience for the audience that's coming in.
Okay, so you're doing a performance and you're working with a college.
We're at Schenectady County Community College. We have a residency there, and we also have this fantastic residency at the Philip Schuyler Mansion in downtown Albany, which is Philip Schuyler's
building.
It's
oh my
a beautiful
God,
building, and we know that he had music there. He was, of course, one of the very important sort of patricians of the area, and a lot of dignitaries stayed at his house, and so we know that music, of our type actually
and don't
happened
forget,
there.
they didn't have, they didn't have television, they didn't have radio.
Right.
And so music was very important to people in that era, because not that it isn't important now,
but it's taken on a different relevance today.
Because now, we have music from all different sources, and you can record your music and
Absolutely.
pass it on. But for them, when they had an event, to have a chamber music there was just like on the top of the
and
line.
sometimes it was the entertainment, sometimes it was background music, sometimes it was a sign of affluence.
Yeah.
Many of the upper class played instruments themselves, because being able to play showed that you had acquired culture,
culture.
which meant that you were wealthy, and
Yeah.
so it sort of went hand in hand.
Yeah. So now you're doing a tribute to suffragettes. Tell us about that.
Yes, Elizabeth Cady Stanton's 200th birthday was back in November of 2015, and of course she was locally based. She was born in Johnstown. She had ties to the Tenbreck family in Albany, and we thought it would be really nice to do a concert that somehow focused on the suffrage movement, because the 100th anniversary of that is coming up very shortly.
Isn't it amazing
It
that
is
we had to
amazing.
fight to vote? To get the vote, we had to fight for it. And if you forget to vote, shame on you.
Well, in 1915, it did not pass in New York State. It wasn't until 1917, and I'm proud to say that Schenectady County voted yes, Albany County voted no.
Really? Oh, well, it must be those politicians, those male politicians.
That's right. They just didn't get it.
Yeah.
But
why do you think, you obviously looked at the suffragette movement. Why on earth was there such an obstructionist movement to stop that?
There was a real fear that women wouldn't vote properly, that they didn't
wouldn't
have...
vote properly?
Right.
They don't know how to pull the thing?
Well, no. Physically they could do it, but,
I know,
that
I'm
they
kidding.
weren't well versed
Smart
enough.
enough.
Or up enough on the issues, or able to comprehend what was important.
Yeah.
And women weren't even allowed to own property until the 1860s. In fact, Elizabeth Cady Stanton
in the United States.
In the United States,
I
Elizabeth
know
Cady
England
Stanton was responsible for.
Actually, England was a little bit ahead of time.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth Cady Stanton was such an important figure with women's rights, not just suffrage, but many women's rights, that it seemed appropriate to do this tribute to her and to women's suffrage. So we have this concert. It's at Druthers Brewery, which may seem like an unusual location.
Well, it did. When I typed that in there, I go, my, that seems a little unusual.
Well, actually, in early America, concerts didn't happen in concert halls. We didn't have concert halls. They happened in assembly rooms and meeting rooms, which were nothing but tavern spaces. So we're kind of taking a return back in time.
I like that. I like it.
And it's an incredible space. It seats almost 200. The brewmaster there, George DePiro.
And where is that located?
It's on Broadway in downtown Albany, sort of near the Dog.
Oh, yeah, Nipper.
Nipper, sort of near
Nipper the dog.
But it's a beautiful space. It's very modern. They renovated this old factory in a gorgeous way. And George DePiro, who's the brewmaster, has been very supportive of us. He has a long history with musicians of Malwick.
Now, this event is going to have the music. It's going to have dinner.
It's going to have a dinner afterwards, although you need to make reservations on March 16th by the end of the day, because it's limited to 100. But there will be a 5-course dinner with pairings, craft beer pairings, with each course of the meal.
Okay.
And then he's made a special new beer for us, an anti-suffragette beer, because the suffrage movement grew out of the temperance movement, so we can't have a beer with that. But we certainly can have an anti-suffrage brew.
It came out of the temperance.
It did.
I had no idea that.
And we have Elaine Houston there, who's reading the Declaration of Sentiments with Elizabeth Cady Stanton drafted. And we have a world premiere called Our Women People by Kathleen Ballantyne. So that's taking text from the early 1900s that were written in support of the suffrage movement. And then we have all kinds of wonderful things going on. That she was Milton Babbitt's teacher, first American to study with Nadia Boulanger, a really fantastic, very well-respected composer. So we're doing her songs and also her solo flute pieces. And then the Amy Beach, or Mrs. H.H.A. Beach, as she was known in her life.
H.H.A. Beach, okay.
Because her husband didn't want her to use her own name, and he didn't want her to concertize. But luckily for her...
Was he ashamed that she
No, it just wasn't proper, and he was a doctor, a very...
Are we glad that we live today?
Yes, well, we have no clue today what it was really like, for women back then and how difficult it was. But she was held up as an example of a woman whose career was successful by the suffragettes.
Yeah.
So we included her flute quintet, fabulous piece. It doesn't need to be qualified in the sense that we put her on there because she's a woman and she had a tie-in with the suffragettes.
She's just
it was just a great piece.
Were there very many, I know we're almost out of time, but were there many women composers? Because you don't hear a lot about women composers.
There weren't that many that were able to publish. There were
because they were being restricted?
It just wasn't the proper thing to do. There wasn't a market for them. In fact, Marion Bauer, after she came back from Europe, got a 12-year contract with a music publisher in New York City, and that was virtually unheard of. So yes, it was very difficult.
So maybe we are listening to music that was composed by women, but they were using initials rather than
and that's often the case too. Or, for example, Fanny Mendelssohn, Felix's sister,
was not done.
Right.
So we have come so far.
Without
and
even realizing
you can be a talk show
right.
host. What the heck?
That's right. That's right.
But even being an actress was frowned upon. So it just
right. Well, it was considered sort of not shady, but a seedy kind of lifestyle, and so if you were a proper woman, that wouldn't be something you would associate.
You wouldn't have a profession anyway. You'd be home.
Right, and the one exception was probably being an opera singer, but that was the sole exception.
Because she sings soprano.
That's right.
There weren't too many men that sang soprano.
Well, there were a few, but you didn't want to get that way.
That way. I know how they had to do it to get there. But it's amazing, and I would recommend watch some of the movies of the 1930s and even the early 40s to find out what women really went through and how they were really disrespected in the world.
Right.
Well, I mean, as far as professionally, yeah.
Right. It just we were supposed to be home. Our job was to educate our children well.
Yeah, and we still can do that, can't we?
I hope so.
I hope so. I got kids that are really smart, so hey, it works, right? Well, let's tell them one more time what the date is.
So it's this Sunday, March 20th.
Okay.
Pre-concert talk at 2 o'clock with a great panel of 4 experts. The concert at 3, and if you're coming to dinner, it follows the concert. If you get a VIP ticket, you get a special sneak tasting of this new anti-suffragette beer.
That is so funny.
Which is brewing right now.
Good. Anne Marie Schwartz, we're always pleased to have her on the show. She's with the musicians of Malwick. And please, if you'd like to enjoy yourself for a wonderful afternoon of good, fine food and also great music, check it out at the Druthers Brewery on the 20th. So.